بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Inshallah, we're moving on to the next section, the second fasl. So الفصل الثاني, the second section regarding الاسم إعرابه وبنائه. Its signs, its إعراب and its being مبني, being مؤرب and being مبني. Okay. Okay. So we have here, if you look at the table again, we have a summary of our book. And we said here, we've done kalima wa aqsamuha. Now we're moving on to, so we've done kalima, we've done ism, fa'il and harf. And now we're going on to al-ism, nouns. What's a noun? How is the signs of a noun? How do you differentiate a noun? And its types, and its, whether it's mu'rab or when it's mabani. Okay. Smart board is playing around or? Okay. So in this section, we have a few things we're going to discuss. First, we're going to discuss alamatul ism. Alamat means signs. So the first thing we're going to discuss is the signs of an ism. Yes, that's the first thing we're going to discuss right here, number one. Number two, we're going to discuss the two types of ism. What is an ism al-mu'rab? What is an ism al-mabni? Oh, you already know that from our previous lessons of sarf. A mu'rab is a word which can change due to the amil, and a mabni is a word which doesn't change due to the amil. And then a mabni, when it stays the same, it either stays the same with a kasra, it stays the same with a fatha, stays the same with a dham, and stays the same with a sukoon. And we discuss each one of these individually. So this is a summary of this section. Everybody understand? Yes? Okay. فَأَمَّا الْإِسْمُ. Now here, amma, as far as a noun is concerned. So we said before in the previous section, we had ism, fa'il and harf. So now we're saying, we know there are three types. Let us focus and discuss the ism. So as far as the ism is concerned, it is recognized. Yu'rafu, it is recognized. So as far as this is concerned, it is recognized via or by. It is recognized by al, meaning alif lam, i.e. when you have an alif lam at the beginning of a word, an extra alif lam, like ar-rajul, it has alif lam at the beginning, so we know this word is an ism. وَبِالتَّنْوِينِ أي يُعْرَفُ بِأَل مَعْطُوفَ عَلَيْهِ and يُعْرَفُ بِالتَّنْوِينِ. It can be recognized by a tanween and it can be recognized by alif lam. كَالرَّجُلٍ. What does rajul have on it? A tanween. So we also know for a fact that this is going to be a noun. So two signs. The third sign, وَبِالْحَدِيثِ عَنْهُ. Hadith, what does hadith mean? When we speak of hadith, we think of the Prophet's narration. So what's hadith? His talk, his narration. So hadith literally means talk, speech, conversation. And anhu, the thing you talk about. So the maf'ul bihi ghayru sarih of hadith is an. So for example, you say, haddatha anhu, regarding something. This thing you spoke about comes with an. Correct? So for example, he's saying like the ta, ka ta'i, that's mudaf. Ka, like, ta is mudaf. And then darabtu is a verb, but he's looking at the whole word as a whole. Like the word, like the ta in the word darabtu. So even though darabtu is a verb, but we're looking at it as a whole. So like we translate it here, like the ta, so we translate this is like the ta of the word darabtu. So the word darabtu, what's the fa'il in darabtu? Ta. So that becomes the sign. So hadith anhu means basically it has the ability to become the subject. You can talk about it, you can discuss it. So if you are able to talk about something, you're able to discuss something, basically you can predicate it, you can give information about it. This is a sign that this word is an ism. Let me give you an example. If I can say, ar-rajulu tawilun. Yes? Correct? Can I say, fi tawilun? Because fi means in. Can I say in is long? Can I say that? No. Can I say Daraba tawilun. I can't say that. I can say ad-darbu tawilun. That's an ism now. But the word daraba, that can't become the topic of discussion. You can't become the mubtada. Do you understand? Does that make sense? Are you following me? So if something is, you can make it the subject of your sentence, the mubtada or the fa'il, then that means it can become what? It doesn't have to be the fa'il or mubtada in every sentence, but it has the ability to become the mubtada. It has the ability to become the fa'il. Then in that case, that word has the ability to become, that word is an ism. So, if you look at it here, what he's done, Ibn Hisham, there are many more alamat, there are many other signs. Some books have 8 signs, some books have 9 signs. But our author, Ibn Hisham, rahimullah, he said in his sharah, he said, you know what? I give you alamatul ism, and I said alif lam, I said tanween, and I said al-hadithu anhu. And by the way, the most prominent sign is al-hadithu anhu, the most important sign of realizing whether a word is a noun or not is hadithu anhu, the ability to discuss it. I make it the subject or the fa'il of a sentence. Okay? Yes? But if you look at it, he said, you know what I've done, I've shown you 2 types of sign. Alama lafziya and alama ma'nawiyya. Lafziya means in wording. So if you look at it, these are signs that you can actually see within the word. Can you see alif lam on the word? Can you see a tanween on the word? Can you see hadith anhu? No. But hadith anhu is ma'nawiyya, is something, a concept, an idea, a thought. So he said, I gave you 2 alama lafziya and 1 alama ma'nawiyya. Where does alif lam come?
So these are the 2 ayahs which the Prophet
It's lafziya, but which part of the word do we get alif lam? Beginning. Where do we get tanween? At the end. So he said, I brought you 2 signs of alama lafziya, because alama lafziya can come fi awwalil kalima. Sometimes alama lafziya comes at the beginning of the sentence, alif lam. Sometimes alama lafziya comes at the end of the sentence, fi akhil kalima, tanween. And sometimes the alama is not a wording, you can't see it in the word, it's ma'nawiyya. There's 2 in darabtu. Does it have alif lam? No. Does it have tanween? No. But we know it's an ism because of hadith anhu. It becomes a fa'il. You can talk about it, you can give information. So regarding the 2, which means ana, I, you said darab, I hit. So hadith anhu is also an alama, but alama ma'nawiyya. The meaning shows that it's a verb. You have to think about it. It's not in the word. You can't see it on paper, but you can understand it. Have you understood? Yes? So let's translate one more time. فَأَمَّا الْإِسْمُ, as far as the noun is concerned, فَيُعْرَفُ بِأَلْ, it is recognized by one of 3 things. By alif lam, like ar-rajuli. وَبِتَنْوِين, it is also recognized by tanween, ka-rajulin. And is also recognized by hadith anhu, by being able to discuss it, i.e. making it the mubtada or the fa'il of a sentence, like the letter ta in the word darabtu. So the ta in the word darabtu neither has alif lam nor tanween, but we still know it is an ism because it has the ability to become the fa'il. It's hadith anhu is the alama ma'nawiyya. So the 2 types of alamat, lafziya and ma'nawiyya, and the lafziya can come fi awwalil kalima and fi akhiril kalima. Do you understand? Is everybody following? Yes? Abdul Rahman, you following? Ji, Abdul Rahman, Muhammad, Abdul Rahman Chauhan. Yes, Muhammad. Okay. Let's move ahead. Wabit tanween. So we already mentioned wabit tanween before, but I want to explain to you in a bit more detail what is tanween. So he says a tanween is really a noon sakin. If I say kitabun, what does it sound like? Does it sound like this or does it sound like this? Kitabun. What does it sound like?
So heavy.
Pardon me?
So heavy this sack was that this person was just like dragging it.
It's both the same. When you enunciate without writing the word kitabun, it sounds like you don't know if it's kitabun or kitabun. They both sound the same. So literally, in terms of enunciation, a tanween is really a noon sakin. But it is لفظا لا خطا. There's a noon, it's a noon sakinatun. It's a noon sakin which comes in enunciation. You can hear it. La khattan, but it is not there in writing. If you read, I can't remember now, but some book, I have a book, but it shows you about orthography, writing rules. So basically, it tell you basically the tanween may have been originally in noon like that, something like that. It's probably something like this. So if you look at this, it's the sign is a dhamma with a noon or something like that. So originally it was like that, then they changed it slightly. So originally a tanween was written as a small noon. Okay? So it's not written. It's not written like this. So a tanween is really in noon sakin, in sound, not in writing. Correct? It is zaida. It is extra, not part of the root letters. For example, the word lana yalinu, laynan, and leanan. So is this noon? Is this a tanween? Well, this is a noon plus a tanween, because this noon is a root letter. So in noon sakin sound after the 3 root letters, and it has to be sakina, and it has to be for ghayr tawqeed. So far you understand this much, Muhammad? You understand?
Look at the companions. Look how they spent. Until I saw.
Yes, Umar. Umar, you following?
Food and clothes. What happened after this?
Okay. Yes. So what we're saying here, but sometimes you get a noon sakin sound, but the noon sakin zaida is not a tanween. Okay. For example, we have the word here in Surah Yusuf, la yusjananna wa la yakunam min as-saghirin. Now, you may have studied before, but let's repeat it. To create emphasis on a fa'il, you can do different things. One thing you can do to create emphasis is you add a noon at the end of the verb. So for example, you have Nasara yansuru, so I will help. You say ansuru, I will help. Now, if you add a lam, la, and you can add a noon sakin at the end. You lose in more detail in Tasrif al-Izzi, inshallah, later on. So la ansu, and then you change the dhamma to a fatha, la ansuran. So you add a noon sakin at the end. Correct? So what is this? La ansuran. Do you understand? This creates emphasis. Normally, it's only a couple of places in the Quran. Usually, you have a noon shadda. You will say la ansuranna. That's more common. With a noon shadda at the end, with a fatha. La ansuranna. But you can also say la ansuran. Not common, but it can be used. So far, you following me? Yes? Everybody follow me? Mustafa? Okay. What we're saying here is that if you have to create emphasis at the end of a verb, you can add a noon sakin. When you put a noon sakin at the end of the verb, it creates emphasis. La ansuran. That's less common. More common, you have a noon shadda. La ansuranna. But you can also have a noon sakin which comes at the end. This is written. La ansuran. But in the Quranic script, you have 2 examples. Even in Surah Alaq, Iqra. So here Surah Yusuf, we have the word here. La. So kana yakunu means what? To become. So la yakunu, he will become. But for emphasis, la yakunan. He will surely become. But how is it written? It's written like this. What's it written like? A tanween. So in the Quran, it's not written like, it's pronounced, it's supposed to be like this. But it's really written like this. La yakunan. Because tanween and noon sakin is pronounced the same way. So it's written like a tanween. But this tanween is for what? This tanween, what's it for? What's it for? Emphasis. So a tanween is a noon sakin, which is written, not written, but pronounced. It's a harf za'id, it is sakin, but not for tawqeed. So even though this has all the conditions except the last condition. What is this? It's a noon sakin, which is pronounced, not written. It is za'ida, not part of the root words, but it is for tawqeed. So it's not a tanween. It is written as a tanween, but it's not a tanween, which is a sign of alamatul ism. This is what? It's a verb. Does that make sense? Have you understood that? Okay. For example, Zaydun, that's a tanween. Rajulun is tanween. Sahin, tanween. Hina idhin, tanween. Muslimatun. Those are all tanweens. because they all have the conditions met. And none of these are all noon sakina in pronunciation, not written, it is not part of the root letters, and it's not for tawqeed. So all of these are what? Tanween. This looks like a tanween, but because it's for tawqeed, we don't categorize it as a tanween, even though it is written as such. Do you understand?
The explanation of
Yes? Okay.
Please mention the explanation.
Yes? Any questions so far? No?
So he's explaining how you actually recite this muwahhada.
No, this is only this. It comes two places in the Quran. The question is, are there many verbs like this? In normal text, you wouldn't see this. I don't say in normal text you wouldn't see it. In the Quran, it comes two places. It comes here in Surah Yusuf, وَلَا يَكُونَمْ مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ, and it also comes in Surah Alaq, لَنَصْفَعًا بِالنَّاسِ. So if you look in the Surah Alaq, it's written like this, la nas. So it should be like this. In terms of في غير القرآن, a part of the Quran, it would be written la nasfa'an. But it is written like this, la nas.
You know what we said? You got the word
Fa'an. La nas fa'an. Because you know for these two, whether it's got a ayn and a nun sakin or a double fatha, it's both the same. La nas fa'an, la nas fa'a. So they're both the same. So it's written like this. These are the two verbs that are written as tanween, with tanween, but this noon is really noon tawqeed. So this is not a tanween, as you would know it. Do you understand?
The actual word jaw.
Do you understand?
The word is word means to
Does anybody have any questions before we move ahead?
means to cut.
Can we stop here today? And inshallah we move ahead tomorrow, inshallah. Okay?
Because it comes in the ayat of the Quran.
Any questions before we stop?
The people of Thamud,
Pardon me?
would carve out in the rocks their dwelling places.
Mm-hmm.
So you know the jabu? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Pardon me?
Yeah. So each daba means a wooden rug
Yeah.
you have cut out so you can put your head in. But the real is derived from the word jaw, which means to cut, and then
Yeah, only with verbs. It only works with only with a verb that has a noon tawqeed at the end.
So it should be 58, and that will cover everything.
Akram bhai,
So
are
those
you lost? Have I lost you? Have I lost anyone?
Well, this one rule, this one condition he's mentioned here, he's mentioned it to exempt these two verbs from the Quran.
work on this book.
Is
Yeah.
it here or have I lost you?
But the main rule is basically this. أما الاسم فيعرف بأل كالرجل وبالتنوين كالرجل وبالحديث عنه كتاء ضربت. This is the main rule. But because he had a useful point under tanween in the شرح قطر الندى وبل السدى, I mentioned that one rule because it's quite important. And also to know that a tanween is really a noon sakin. There are a few other things, but not that important, so I haven't mentioned them. Okay?
Means to change.
Yes, and tomorrow we'll go on to the mu'rab and mabni. Okay? So we stop here today, inshallah. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.